That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Trade Talk with Glare on the cover. Yes, today we're discussing The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 1. Alright, so I think I've between comic reviews and Geeky Gentlemen and Trade Talk, I think I'm pretty firmly established I'm no fan of Alan Moore. I think Alan Moore is a bit of a prick. I think he's a bit of a whiny prick, and I just don't like him. Anytime I hear him talk, I just roll my eyes. I don't like Alan Moore as a person. That being said, he is a fantastic writer. Alan Moore really is a talent. I heard a great quote in regards to Alan Moore, and it has always stuck with me. And that's that Alan Moore is a genius. And anything he chose to go into, he was going to have a profound impact on. He just happened to choose comics. And that has stuck with me for so long. I cannot remember who said it, but 100% agree. The fact that I don't like Alan Moore and that I'm always so like snide and kind of shitty about Alan Moore is a reflection on his impact that he's left in the comics industry, that he even that sometimes seems ashamed of and seems to criticize. And I don't know, maybe he got older and like kind of looked back on some of the stuff he did when he was really getting big in the industry and just like as a distaste for it, and maybe he became more self-critical. I don't know. The way I typically see it framed, or the way I see him frame it, is he'll say some shit, but then you can go like look at his books and what he's famous for, what's given him the authority that makes people ask him questions about the comic industry, is that he wrote the things that he's criticizing. Like, it always gets me, like, Alan Moore will say stuff like, here you go, Philip Cullen. Oh, comics industry, just thriving constantly off of never creating anything new. Yeah, sure, that is legitimately a problem in the comics industry. Alan Moore, would you like to talk to me about the fact that almost everything you're famous for writing is based on pre-existing characters? Like, literally, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. All of these are pre-existing characters. The thing he's most famous for, Watchmen, they were initially just going to use pre-existing characters, but then almost at the last minute just decided to use like thinly veiled recreations of those characters. The most famous being that Rorschach was initially going to be the Question, and Captain or Dr. Manhattan was Captain Atom, and Night Owl was Blue Beetle, and yada 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 yada. So like it's always with that shit that Alan Moore just makes me go like, dude, just shut the fuck up. I would have so much more respect for Alan Moore if he just took a vow of silence. Anyway, so yeah, we got League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. For those that don't know the premise, it's Avengers but old-timey. It's old-timey Avengers. What if all the famous characters from the classic stories set in this era got together as a superhero team? So we've got Captain Nemo and oh shit, what's his name? Alan Quatermain. And Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and the Invisible Man and Mina Harker. If you don't know Mina Harker, you know Jonathan Harker, I'm assuming. Jonathan? It's Jonathan, right? You know, the guy, the Dracula. The guy that got hit by a Dracula. Anyway. So yeah, that's kind of the premise. Is like, what if we made an Avengers team out of those guys? And this story is, I mean, it's not clever. It's just that. It's seriously, it's pretty hokey, silly comic book stuff, which is really refreshing from Alan Moore. To be honest with you, I was expecting something much more pretentious. That it kind of worked. But then, like, even with that, I'm kind of left at a place where I'm just like, the stuff I've heard you complain about is stuff you're doing in your series. Like, I know I've heard Alan Moore complain about the sexualization, the violence depicted against women in comics. You know, like, I don't know, I'd go to, like, Spider-Man. I'm going to just pick a movie because it's fresh in my mind right now. But, like, think about the first Spider-Man movie, and, like, Mary Jane's about to be attacked in an alley, and the subtext is pretty evident that she's going to be sexually assaulted there, too. But Spider-Man comes in, kicks ass, and saves the day, and so we're framing Spider-Man as a hero for protecting her virginity or her womanliness or whatever, her innocence. But I mean, it's a cheap trick. It's pretty inherently sexist, because the implication being that she's less pure if she got attacked in that way. You know, it's a whole fucking can of worms. Anyway, but, like, I know I've heard Alan Moore say stuff like how that's wrong, how the industry has enabled it. And, like, seriously, this scene is like 4 pages in. I don't know how to react to that. I'm just like, if you believe that, then why isn't it reflected in your own work? And to be fair, I haven't read much of Alan Moore's new stuff. I do have just generally a really bad taste in my mouth with Alan Moore, so I try not to read much of his stuff, but I got a deal on this, so I was like, fuck it, whatever. And I'd always been curious about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Spoilers, I didn't like it. I love saying things like Scott Snyder once told me, hey, you know, comics writers and artists, we appreciate criticism, but we like it, it should be constructive, and we don't want you just saying stuff to try to hurt people. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't do that. But my exception is Alan Moore. I like to say things just in the slight hope that Alan Moore will see it and will be kind of mad. So here we go. Feel free to cut this out and post it all over the internet. The movie's better. I don't know why, but, like, Alan Moore keeps the weirdest things. So it's like, it's really hard to go back and read stuff from the 18th century. Let me see if I can pull something up, because this could be a fun little experiment. Oh, not ACIST. Oh man, I don't want your think pieces. Tarzan online. I just want to. No, not the fucking movie. God damn it. Tarzan of the Apes, Edgar Rice Burroughs. Read it now for free. Okay. And I should pick a later chapter. All right. The Village of Torture. There we go. Okay. Let's get some screen sharing going here. Whabam. 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 All right, you can still hear me, right? Yeah, we're looking good. Okay. So let's go over here and start reading some excerpts from Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which came out, early 1900s? Durante gave a warning shout to his column as the blacks closed on him, but before he could draw his revolver, he had been pinioned and dragged into the jungle. His cry had alarmed the sailors, and a dozen of them sprang forward past Professor Porter, running up the trail to their officer's aid. They did not know the cause of his outcry, only that it was a warning of danger ahead. They had rushed past the spot where Diantor had been seized, when a spear hurled from the jungle transfixed one of the men, and then a volley of arrows fell among them. Are you getting that this is racist yet? I gotta find... to add to the fiendishness of their cruel savagery was the poignant memory of a still crueler barbarities practiced upon them and theirs by the white officers, that arch-hypocrite Leopold II of Belgium, because of whose atrocities they had fled the Congo Free State, a pitiful remnant of what once had been a mighty tribe. That is surprisingly woke for Tarzan. I will give it some credit there. Anyway, I gotta find the line. Number of women scattered to their several huts to fetch pots and water, while others built a row of fires on which portions of the feast were to be boiled, while the balance would be slowly dried to its strips for future use, as they expected the other warriors to return with many prisoners. The festivities were delayed, awaiting the return of the warriors who had been remained to engage the skirmish with the white men, so that it was quite late when all were in the village, and the dance of death commenced to circle around the doomed officer. The blacks are gonna eat him. Half fainting from pain and exhaustion, Diantor watched from beneath half-closed lids what seemed but the vagary of delirium, or some horrid nightmare from which he must soon awake. The bestial faces dabbed with color, the huge mouths with flaggy, hanging lips. Oh, God. The yellow teeth, sharp files. Fucking Christ. The rolling demon eyes, the shining naked bodies, the cruel spears. Surely no such creatures really existed upon the earth. He must indeed be dreaming. The savage, whirling bodies circled him. Now a spear sprang forth and touched his arm. The sharp pain and the feel of hot, trickling blood assured him of the awful reality of his hopeless position. Another spear then fell. Another touched him. He closed his eyes and held his teeth firm. Set, he would not cry out. He was a soldier of France, and he would teach these beasts how an officer and a gentleman died. Okay, I think I've made my point. So what you've got when you read old shit like the characters in this is really racist stuff, because it was written by racist white guys who truly did believe in stuff like the white man's burden. Okay, so I was just reading Tarzan. Tarzan was written by Edgar Rice Burroughs, who wrote White Man's Burden. Is it Edgar Rice Burroughs? White Man's Burden, Rudyard Kipling. Kipling wrote Jungle Book. That's it. That's Tarzan Jungle Book. Anyway, so you've got these old stuffy white English guys who write these big grandiose tales of exploit and adventure, and that's how we remember them. But we rarely go read them and realize just how ingrained a lot of the racial superiority, the racial bigotry is in the texts. So like you try to read Tarzan and there's just shit like, oh, the flabby lips of the blacks. You know, it's just cringe inducing. And so the idea of, okay, let's do an Avengers with characters based on popular literature from that time period is a cool idea. But then you have to deal with the racism. And Alan Moore took a surprising approach, I suppose, which is to just keep it. You know, I've read some racist comic books that didn't know they were being racist, but like, man, where's it at? I gotta find it. Ah, here's a good line from Hyde. What a hole! It stinks of Chinamen in the river. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Like, I'll give more credit. He doesn't have his characters straight spout racial slurs left and right. They sneak a few in there though. He just keeps it. He just keeps the racial like bigotry of these characters. I don't know why. Like, I guess it's more true to the characters as they existed. It's more accurate to the time that it's taking place in. And perhaps these are not characters we should idolize and view as heroes, even if they do heroic deeds. But like, really? Why bother? This seems like it could be so much fun and could detach these characters from their racist histories and possibly make them, you know, like to remove the racism from some of these characters is certainly an ethically complex question, but I'll just take the short road for it and say, yeah, fuck it, do it, whatever. There's no reason that if people like these characters, we can't snip the racist buds off of them. And I mean, it's not like Moore didn't know what he was doing. I think he made some choices in this that were clearly intended to give some dignity to people of color in a time when they were not allowed it in literature. So like, you got Captain Nemo, who's Indian, and like he at one point has to pretend to be a servant because they go undercover, and he complains about it the whole time. And then when they need to go undercover again, he's like, "I'm not fucking doing it again." He's got you know, a lot of righteous indignation and pride, and so it's not that Moore is like just continuing the stigmatization. He's more just showing it, which I just think is a weird choice. I just think, you know, just you're not erasing that stuff. You just say fuck it. We don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to embellish that kind of thing. But yeah, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen save London from being bombed by a fantastic flying machine that uses a element, and there's, I don't know, it's a lot of sneaking around mostly. You get some cool moments. The first couple chapters are about putting the team together. I like a lot of the art. I think the art's pretty fucking kick-ass. The Nautilus, I believe, is the name of Captain Nemo's ship, and it gets some fantastic visualization that's really cool. Nemo gets some great art. Again, as far as the representation of people of color, Nemo's kind of the token guy here, and he gets a lot to do that's actually really cool looking. Like he definitely has a lot of dignity. He gets to be cool on the page, so that does count for a lot. Meanwhile, you got like Alan Quartermain, who's a fucking opium addict. So it's not thoughtless. It's just a strange choice. Anyway. I don't know. There's some cool art, but ultimately, I like the movie more. Kind of want to go watch the movie. And again, it's you got Mina Murray, I want to say, is because she goes by her maiden name, but people keep calling her Harker here and again. So like on one level, yeah, that's commentary on like the sexism of the time and all that stuff. On the other level, here's a rape scene. Here's the Invisible Man raping a woman. Not even a woman, a girl. Hot take alert. I think Alan Moore is probably a bit sexist. Or at least 80s famous Alan Moore is a bit sexist. Without necessarily realizing it. Like, I think he's like knows how to spout feminist points. Knows how to have his character spout feminist points sexist. But, like, not aware of how to, like, actively make... Or actively portray women in a proactive manner, and not to do cheap shit like that. I don't know. These are thoughts I have. Moriarty's the villain. There's like a whole backup that's like one of those old Alan Quartermain books, and I read about half of it, and then just like this really kept the tone of the of those old books to it. Pretty sure he uses the word negress, and so I don't know, that shit just turns me right the fuck off, no matter what kind of commentary he's trying to do with it. So I stopped about halfway through that, because I didn't have the interest for it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure people enjoy this for one reason or another. I don't like Alan Moore much to begin with, so this kind of stuff I am inherently harsher on. Throw in shit that just disappoints me in the modern day anyway. I lose a lot of interest. I'm gonna go rewatch the movie. Bye everyone, thanks for coming to this episode of Trade Talk and also comic reviews.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.